Hey, welcome to a new episode of the newly titled anime show thing. Which, yes, that's actually what I'm going to call this from now on, because why not? It's not like any of my other titles or anything better, so might as well just go full low effort. This still took me way too long to come up with. This episode, we are going to talk about Black Lagoon. As with every other video that I've done, I'm going to try to keep away from major spoilers. I might need to talk about some minor stuff, but should be fine. Mostly because, as we'll get into a little bit more later, there's not a whole lot of actual major story in Black Lagoon. But still, if you're concerned about spoilers for certain things, I'm not going to talk about major stuff, just minor things, so you're good to go. Black Lagoon follows this group of mercenaries that go by the name Lagoon Company. That, I think, really kind of gives you an idea of the premise. Each episode, or sometimes set of episodes, is a different job they're assigned on, and that can be anything from delivering cargo, which can range from weapons to a human being. Their job might be to kill somebody, which is pretty self-explanatory. You kill somebody. So it's that kind of show. A lot of legally not legal things, I guess is a good way to say it, because that's what it is. Illegal things. They're crimes. The main characters are without a doubt criminals, and they're not particularly good people either. Most of them have very shaky morals. They're pretty much willing to do whatever as long as it gets them paid and doesn't directly hurt them. So if you like characters that are good people, Black Lagoon doesn't have those. The characters are not good people. They're a lot of times actually kind of quite terrible people, and a lot of them are willing to kill just for the hell of it, because they're that way. But due to the nature of the show, with it focusing on different jobs every episode, or every set of episodes, there's not really much in the way of overall story. There's not an overarching plot. You really could, for the most part, watch a lot of the episodes in any order you wanted, save for whenever they have to introduce a new character. But for the most part, you could watch them in whatever order you like and not lose anything, because there's not an overarching story. It's very episodic. In the first season, most jobs tended to boil down to just one episode, so you had a good variety of jobs, and still because of that variety, you got occasionally episodes that weren't so good. There's a two-parter about some painting, I think, that Nazis were trying to get. That one wasn't particularly interesting. I actually fell asleep while watching it. But for the most part, it's a very entertaining show because its focus is on action. It's ultimately a popcorn kind of show. Its writing isn't particularly necessarily strong, but you're not really in it for that. You're in it to see people shooting guns, you're in it to see things blowing up, you're in it to see people getting killed. It's just wild, crazy action movie kind of stuff, and it does that really, really well. And as you might guess, it can be pretty violent. It's never super violent. Like, you will see people get shot and stabbed, but never will you see like some guy's intestines hanging out or whatever. You're not going to see a lot of gore. A lot of it, there's a lot of implied stuff. There's a set of episodes in the second season that imply a lot of pretty horrific things, but you never really see anything that's too gory. But if you're squeamish around violence, I'd say go in cautiously, because there's still a lot of implied just terrible things. The one major issue I really have with Black Lagoon and how it's set up mostly comes in during Second Barrage and Roberta's Blood Trail, which is a series of OVAs that came out a few years ago. The first season did its structure really well. You have jobs that fit mostly a single episode or a couple of episodes, but never do they go on really, really long. Season 2 decided every job needed to hit 3 episodes, save for the very last one, which takes up 5 episodes. And because of that, they kind of drag. Second Barrage has a lot of very dull moments where nothing is really happening, and you could really cut them out and lose nothing from the show. Especially during its final job, because it takes up so many episodes. So it loses steam, and I think Second Barrage is not as strong as the first season. Another thing that Second Barrage had a real problem with, mostly in its first arc, but still kind of later, is that Second Barrage, to me, felt like it cared more about trying to make serious, shocking stories more than making really interesting ones. Because when I go into Black Lagoon, I'm not expecting amazing Shakespearean writing that delves into why, why Revy is the way she is, or why Dutch is doing this. I'm not going into it for that. I'm just going into it for something interesting to happen. But Second Barrage and Roberta's Blood Trail, to a lesser extent, seemed like they were more concerned with making the stories shocking and violent than actually entertaining or interesting in any way, shape, or form. And I think there's no real better way of going about that than the first arc, which I have called in my notes the Vampire Twins arc, because they refer to the characters in it as the Vampire Twins a couple times. Especially with their backstory, those sets of episodes cared more about having the twins do terrible things and be horrible people and, dismember people and torture them until they died. It was more concerned with doing that than making, taking them down or dealing with them an actual compelling story. Especially once it gets to near the end and revealing some things about them. Again, I won't go into detail in case you do decide to watch this, but the Second Barrage kind of lost me a lot of the time. The jobs were a lot less interesting, and combine that with the fact that they drag on a lot, Second Barrage is just way less good than the first season. And Roberta's Blood Trail kind of takes my problem with them being stretched out and ramps it up. It's only, I think, 5 or 6 episodes, but those episodes are 33 minutes each, and they all cover a single arc. So you've got, I think, about 2, maybe even close to 3 hours. I don't remember the exact time. You have 2 at least hours of Black Lagoon here covering the one arc, and because it's so stretched out like that, there's so many points in Roberta's Blood Trail where I was like, okay, can we move on here, please? Especially in the the last couple of episodes, there's just a lot of holding on things, and it takes forever for anything to happen. And Roberta's Blood Trail, I think, is the weakest part of the series. I liked the idea because Roberta, who showed up in the first season, is an interesting character, and I liked seeing more of her. But not only is she not really in it a whole lot, it's just kind of really dull and boring. And I don't know how you manage to take a revenge story of somebody going and killing a bunch of people in the most over-the-top ways possible. I don't know how you go about making that boring, but it happened a lot in Roberta's Blood Trail. But moving on to things that I feel like I want to compliment. I watched the show partially subbed and dubbed. I mostly watched it dubbed. And the dub is very, very good. There's been sort of this thing, not really lately, but in general over the last eternity of the anime community online, that dubs are inherently bad, or usually at least worse than the original Japanese cast. And most of the time I'll say that I prefer the Japanese cast, but usually I find that dubs, especially nowadays, are pretty good. And Black Lagoon, which is a 10-year-old show, is a really good dub, and I think I liked the dub more than the Japanese cast. I think the voices fit the characters more. I think, save for in Roberta's Blood Trail, where it was not particularly good, I think the delivery was a lot better. The dub for Black Lagoon is very, very strong. So if you're going to watch Black Lagoon, watch it dubbed, because it's good. I guess the last thing to really talk about is the animation. It's not really anything to write home about. It's good, but it's not... If we're talking shows that have really, really nice and clean animation, it's not one that I'd particularly mention. What it does do is animate action sequences really, really well. Anytime anybody is fighting, or anytime there's, a gunfight going on, it looks nice in the action scenes, but it's not mind-blowing. It's very good, and it's pretty good animation because it's Madhouse, but it's not, outstanding, amazing, perfect animation. It's just mostly pretty good. So yeah, I guess that's really all I got to say about Black Lagoon. A little bit less of a descriptive one this time because honestly there's not a whole lot to go into detail about with Black Lagoon. It's a pretty simplistic show. It's about mercenaries pulling off jobs, and usually they have to kill people. So not a whole lot of detail to go into. But this is still a 12-minute recording, so who knows. But if you enjoyed that, then in theory you can subscribe and YouTube will tell you in your sub box or by notification if you click the bell when I upload a new video. But if they don't do that, which they seem to have a track record of not doing that, then I post when I upload new videos on Twitter, and I'll also sometimes tweet about shows that I'm watching when I'm on Twitter, so if you really care for whatever reason, you can get sort of sneak peeks as to what videos I'll probably be doing in the future if you follow me there, which is linked in the description, along with a couple of other things. Or if you want to watch some of the stuff that I've done in the past, then on screen right now are two of my previous videos. The one on the left is the last video I did, which was on Shin Godzilla, and the one on the right, I don't know what it is because I pick it randomly every time. That's all for now, and I will see you guys next time.